Well, Bubba was at church one Sunday, and after a really powerful sermon, he came through the line to shake hands with the minister, and he looked a little bit distraught, and the minister said, Bubba, is there something wrong? And he said, well, I really need you to pray for my hearing. And so the minister just was inspired to cup his hands around Bubba's ears and look into his eyes and then drop into that sacred place and offer up this beautiful prayer of healing for Bubba's ears. And then he very slowly lowered his hands away and he says, how is your hearing now? And Bubba says, well, I don't know. I don't go to court until Tuesday. So I want to talk to you this morning about healing life, about the real kind of healing life. And I've been gone from Sacramento for 20 years, which just seems hard to believe. I went by in a blink. But I want to share with you some of my own spiritual growth in that time and share with you a healing experience that I participated in and moved through in my own life as we joined together in our message this morning. And it starts out, once upon a New Year's Eve, I went to a burning bowl service. You're all familiar with burning bowl, right? Where we write out the things we no longer want in our life and we burn them up in a bowl, and then in some places, in our services, we come back in for the second half of the service and you write an affirmative prayer about what you want to see in your life for the new year. And so that particular year, I wrote out my prayer. I was feeling very inspired by Spirit, and I wrote out, I want to come to know and feel God as love in a more profound way than ever before. That was my New Year prayer. And my prayer was answered in that year that followed, and it was one of the most significant years of my life. But my prayer was answered in a way that wasn't exactly what I would have anticipated, nor would I have really called into my life, that I want to come to know and feel God as love in a more profound way than ever before. And my year went something like this. My dad, who had cancer, suffered several strokes, and my mom developed Alzheimer's disease. And then, under the stress of all of that, or for whatever reason, I left my home and my marriage for what I call the period of separation and reevaluation, to see is this where I want to be? Can we make this work? And I'd been out of the marriage about 3 weeks when I contracted strep pneumonia, the kind that killed Jim Henson, the Muppet Man. It's called galloping pneumonia because it spreads so fast and kills so quickly. And I always say Elizabeth Taylor had it too. We were in the hospital at the same time, Anyway, on my last checkup, I recovered from the pneumonia after 30 days in the hospital. I recovered from the pneumonia, and I went in for my last checkup with that. I had a new doctor, and he did one of those establishing appointments. Have you ever had this and this and this and this? No. Prior to the pneumonia, the only thing I'd had was like a mosquito bite. There was just nothing. I was only 38 years old. You're just not sick. So he said, well, are you having any problems? And I said, well, my heart beats funny once in a while. And he said, really? Well, let's just check that out, make sure it's nothing serious. And so I went for the tests, and they came back. And at 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, the cardiologist called me. Not his secretary, not his office, the cardiologist was on my recorder saying, Miss Larkin, it's imperative that you call me immediately. Here's my pager number, my home phone number, my cell phone number. So I remember I called my sister-in-law because she works in coronary intensive care, and I said, what do you think that is? And I said, do you think I'm going to take medication the rest of my life or something? She said, well, I don't know. So Saturday morning, the cardiologist had me come in and meet with him, and he said, you need open heart surgery, and you need it immediately. That my heart had a hole that was so big that it was just going to burst and kill me. And so I have to say, I've been very careful about what I affirm in burning bowl prayers ever since. I was called to stand more faith in that year than I've ever known. And in the face of that challenge, God bless us that we know these spiritual principles, because I never deserted the the principles, and I never deserted my faith. There were times when I had to strap on what I called invisible leg braces to keep my knees from buckling under all that was happening in my life. And my prayer to have a deeper and more intimate relationship with God certainly came true because we were talking on a daily basis, you know? Now, many of you have had transforming years like that, haven't you? When it just all kind of comes at one time. And if you're having one of those years now, I want to invite you to trust that the deepest plunges generally turn into the highest pinnacles of our soul's healing, don't they? That the deepest valleys have the highest mountain peaks when you walk through the valley. I always say, walk through the valley, you can pitch a tent, just don't build a cabin and take up residence there. So from the context of that year, the piece I want to share with you today is how I used Myrtle Fillmore's healing practices to successfully meet the heart surgery and to move through that experience whole and well. It took place in 1990. It's been 26 years and healthy and well. And back then, the surgery was very primitive. They took your heart out of your body and worked on it and then put it back in. And so it was right where, you remember you see in the movies where they're running down the hall and they're hand massaging the heart to keep it pumping until they can get you hooked up? Oh, I missed that part. But now they put you on a bypass machine and they work on your heart. They keep you right there while they work on your heart. Most of us are familiar with Myrtle's healing story. Steve very wonderfully reminded us of parts of it in the opening. She healed herself of tuberculosis, malaria, and other things. Unity's movement began as a healing ministry. You remember that she was given like 3 months to live when she made a commitment to gain an understanding of healing so that she could get well. And some of you may have heard, or I'm sure if you've been in Unity any length of time, you've heard Myrtle's story. But some of the details that I found fascinating, Rosemary Fillmore Ray, the granddaughter of Charles and Myrtle, shared with me that when Myrtle made a decision to get well, she emptied out a closet under her stairwell in her home. And in there, she put in a desk and a lamp and a desk, 2 chairs, one for herself and one for the presence of Jesus Christ, and a Bible. And she made a commitment to go into that closet and study and read. And Rosemary said sometimes 8 hours a day. And she said, I'll either get well or I'll die. And if I get well, I might learn something that could be beneficial to other people. And so I want to remind us this morning of, her story, because there's living words. There's living words of life in the power of her testimony. She said, and I'm not going to read the whole story, but just a few excerpts. After she came out of that closet 2 years later, she was healed, and she lived 46 more years beyond that diagnosis. So she said, I have made what seems to me a discovery. I was fearfully sick. I had all the ills of mind and body I could bear. Medicine and doctors ceased to give me relief, and I was in despair when I found practical Christianity. I took it up, and I was healed. I love that line. I took it up, and I was healed. I took it up in consciousness. I took hold of the principles, and I was healed. This is how I made what I call my discovery. And then she goes on. She says, I was thinking about life. Life has to be guided by intelligence in making all forms. Life is simply a form of energy and has to be guided and directed in man's body by his intelligence. How do we communicate intelligence? By thinking and talking, of course. Then it flashed upon me that I might talk to the life in every part of my body and have it do just what I wanted to do. I began to teach my body, and I got marvelous results. I told the life in my liver that it was not sick, but full of energy. I told the life in my stomach that it was not weak or inefficient, but energetic, strong, and intelligent. I told the life in my abdomen that it was no longer infested with ignorant thoughts of disease, put there by myself or by doctors, but that it was alive with the wholesome energy of God. I told my limbs that they were active and strong. I told my eyes they were clear eyes, bright eyes. They see with the light of the Christ. I went to all the centers of my body and spoke words of truth to them, words of strength and power. I want everybody to know about this beautiful truth and law and use it. And in 2 years, Myrtle was no longer an invalid, and through her prayers, she was absolutely whole. I want everybody to know about this beautiful, true, spiritual law and to use it, she wrote. So, facing open heart surgery, I decided to try to do what Myrtle Fillmore had done by speaking words of life to her body. And I thought that if Myrtle could do it and it worked for her, that I could at least try the same process and see if it could work for me. And so I wanted to share with you the process that I followed. And this morning I also want to ask you to, if there's something in the physicality of your body that needs healing, if you're sitting with high blood pressure or bad eyesight or lower back pain or cancer or whatever, I want you to just now lift that up in mind to the universal Christ consciousness as we hear this message. Because your body can hear it. And right now, beginning in this moment, it can turn toward wholeness. It can hear me, and it can hear you in your thoughts as you respond to the message. So here's the process that I followed. I have 4 steps for you this morning. First, I have to admit, when I went in and the cardiologist said, you need open heart surgery and you need it immediately, I started to cry. I went to the appointment alone. I drove myself, and I started to cry, and I was shocked. I was just shocked. You know, after having almost died from pneumonia just a few weeks before, I weighed 89 pounds, if you can believe that. This new diagnosis was such a setback, felt like such a setback, and I reeled from the news for several days. But I got to a place, after I got through the initial shock and drama and trauma, I got to a place where I realized for healing to begin in the tissues and cells of your body, you have to release the shock. If you fall, you release the shock. And your tissues, you say, well, how do I do that? You just simply say, I release the shock. I release the pain. I release the suffering. You begin to take dominion and direct the energy and the life intelligence in your body. Step number 1, all healing takes place in a state of peace. I want you to forget this fight for your life stuff. All healing comes from a state of peace. There is perfect strength in peace. And you have to transcend the human realm of appearances and fear and facts and diagnosis and family history and all the internet information that you research and how the illness typically responds or traditionally responds to treatment. You have to transcend all of that and move into the peace of Christ. In daily prayer, or as often as you need it. I'm always amazed in my ministry in Nashville, when people got sick, usually with a diagnosis of cancer, oh my God, they turned into Zen Buddhists. They're meditating every day for, regular practice of prayer. And they got well, because there's power in prayer. You want to move into the peace of Christ because that's the realm that's beyond analysis and beyond diagnosis. Deepak Chopra always says, this is a thought, this is a thought, this is a thought. You want to go into the spaces. You want to drop into the spaces between the thoughts. That's the stillness. That's the secret place of the Most High. That's the realm where you get the ego self and all the ways you think it should work out of the way, and the power of Christ in you is activated. Charles Fillmore said, mystical power neither acts upon nor originates from the human realm. You must enter the Christ consciousness. And this is a very personal process, a very intimate ministering between you and the God self of you, the human self of you and the God self of you. And what happens in this place is that you become aware of an unboundedness. And you begin to feel the presence of God as perfect life, perfect health, like we sang in the hymns. My life begins for me today, new worlds before me lie. My yesterdays have gone away, no more to cause a sigh. So you begin, there's a deeper shift and a union with Spirit with God takes place. And you want to be perfectly still because you can feel the power of the universal Christ move. You can feel it moving in the room right now, can't you? You can feel it move. And it's moving in you to heal you. And you remember that you are not the one doing it. When's the last time you made a heart or an ocean? Right? You cooperate with it. You open to receive it. And as you live from this presence, in this presence, as you dwell in that secret place of the Most High, what happens is you're restored to your original pattern of perfection. And so you no longer feel perfect life and health and wholeness. You become that life. Every part of your being becomes life and wholeness. And your healing takes place instantaneously. Now, it may take your physical body a few days or weeks to catch up with the wholeness that you've touched in spirit, but you've begun the process. You know when you've touched that healing life. You feel it as an affirmation and a confirmation in your body. I love the story of the woman who pushed through the crowd to touch the hem of Jesus' garment to receive healing. That's found in the Gospel of Mark. I brought my Bible since, I've counted on all of you a couple times, so I brought mine. Do you remember when Dorothy would read from the Bible and she'd open it up and she'd press the seam with her hands? Do you remember that gesture? All the years of watching Dorothy as she read from Scripture. This is just a brief reminder of the story. A large crowd followed him and pressed in upon him. Now there was a woman who had been suffering from a hemorrhage for 12 years. She had endured much under many physicians and had spent all that she had, and she was no better, but rather grew worse. She had heard about Jesus and came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak. For she said, if I but touch his clothes, I will be made well. Immediately, her hemorrhage stopped, and she felt in her body that she was healed of her disease. Immediately aware that power had gone forth from him, Jesus turned about in the crowd and said, who touched me? And the disciples said, all the crowd's pressing in against you and you ask who touched me? He said, I perceive that power has gone from me. You see, she made connection with that universal Christ. And the Christ imparted the power and she received full healing immediately. His disciples said to him, you see the crowd pressing in on you, how can you say, who touched me? He looked around him to see who had done it, but the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came in fear and trembling and fell down before and told him the whole truth. And he said to her, daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease. Go in peace. Stay in that realm of peace where you touch the universal God consciousness of healing and life. The woman had been ill for a long time, and that female nature in Scripture is our emotional nature, where she still had hope of regaining her health. She'd heard of the remarkable cures Jesus had effected, and she made a determined effort to reach him by pushing through the crowd. Healing comes when we make contact with the Christ. We have to boldly push through the crowd of thought people, the fears, the doubts, the diagnosis, the worries. And even, I love this part, even if we only touch the edge the hem of the garment, even if we only pray enough, think we get it right enough, do it long enough or whatever, to just touch the edge of the Christ consciousness, full healing comes. Only have to touch the hem, and full healing is imparted. Immediately she was healed. There was a connection and an exchange of healing life. Jesus knew it, and the woman knew it. And that's the union that you're seeking, to be restored to that pattern of original perfection. So all healing comes from a state of peace. Second step is let God form your healing. As I had more tests to confirm whether or not I really had to go through the surgery, my prayer was just like that of Jesus in the garden. If it be possible, let this cup pass me by. Nevertheless, you know it, say it with me, not my will, but thine be done. Right? Asking for God's will in your life is the prayer for ultimate fulfillment, because it seeks an emotionally higher ground than your own personal agenda. It gives Spirit room to move and work in your life. The tests confirmed that I did need the surgery, and then my prayer switched over to the prayer that I think every one of us have prayed at one time or another in our life. God help me. Show me how to meet this. God help me. Show me how to meet this. And it was then that I remembered Myrtle's discovery, and I thought, well, I better get busy speaking words of life to my body. Myrtle said, "He has given me the life, power, intelligence, and substance out of which I may recreate my soul qualities and my physical structures." My physical structures. And so, let's see. He has given me the life, power, intelligence, and substance out of which I may recreate my soul qualities and my physical structures and come forth a new creature. She said, you too, by studying and proving this truth, can do the same. So, I began like Myrtle to speak very specifically to the life intelligence in my body. And that's step 3. Speak the word. Speak the word. Speaking directly to the divine essence within you carries you into the deep structures of the Christ, where the mysteries of healing are decoded and called into action in your body. Like Myrtle, I talked to the problem areas of my body. I asked forgiveness. I told them I loved them. I asked them to cooperate with me in returning to my original pattern of perfection. I described as best I could the incision that the surgeon would make split my sternum and make down the front of my body. I asked my skin to not be traumatized or bruised by that, because your body can't tell the difference between a criminal's slash and a surgeon's incision. So you need to tell it what's going to be happening to it so that it can prepare to work in infinite cooperation. I asked that the infinite intelligence in me work with the infinite intelligence in the surgeon. If he needed a little organ to move over just a little to the left, that my body would do that to cooperate with him. I asked my heart to be brave. And the night before the surgery, the hospital staff gave me a video to watch that showed me all of the life support I would be hooked up to when I came out of surgery, because they say you come out of surgery and you think something's gone terribly wrong because there's tubes in you everywhere. And I watched it once for me, and then I replayed it, and I asked my body intelligence to watch it, so it would know what to expect and how to respond. I worked with a lot of affirmations. Christ, heal my heart. All of the 12 powers that Phil has been teaching us in this latest series. I am life, I am love, I am strength, I am faith. All of those I couldn't just pick one, because they all seem to fit my situation to restore myself to life and wholeness. Psalm 51 verse 10 became my mantra. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. And then the last thing I did was I instructed my body to keep me asleep the whole time, because I didn't want to wake up for any of it. And the anesthesiologist said because I was young and somewhat healthy that I could wake up during the surgery, and they said, don't worry, we'll know that and we'll put you right back to sleep. So I went, please keep me asleep through the whole thing. I do not want to wake up for any of that. Step 4 is surrender and release. In the last step of healing life, we turn ourselves over to God and we go about our life with a calm assurance that in the great unseen, miracles are happening. That there is an unseen side of life where something miraculous is taking place. Faith is the what? Assurance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Dorothy used to say of things not yet seen, because Spirit's working in divine order in your life, in your body, in your health. So with my New Year's prayer echoing in my mind, I wanted to come to know and feel God's love in a more profound way than ever before. I very humbly and reverently surrendered my body and my life into the love of God. 12 hours of surgery. I came out a maze of tubes and needles and monitors. And even though I had needles in my neck and my arms and tubes draining off fluid on my lungs, tubes down my lungs and a big incision down the front of my body, I had no bruises, not even at the incision. Of the 4 problem areas that were diagnosed and confirmed by heart cath and all of the tests, when the surgeon opened me up, only one problem remained, the hole in my heart, and even that had begun closing on its own. He repaired that and he said there were no other issues to correct. During the heart cath, he discovered that there were 2 veins that had reconnected, and I'm never sure which this was, either misconnected into my lungs at birth, and he was going to have to reroute them into my heart, and surgery was going to be about 45 minutes longer for him to reroute those veins. And when he got inside of me, the veins were corrected in the right place. Although in his pride, he said, well, I would have moved them a little bit more to the left. Gotta love him. We met the night before the surgery, and he said, do you have any questions for me? And I said, yeah, just one. This isn't the first time you've ever done this, is it? I said, no. I said, okay, good. I don't know anything about cardiothoracic surgery. I don't know how to make a heart. What I did do was do what Myrtle Fillmore suggested, and that was go into my inner chamber, shut the door, pray to the Father in secret, in sacredness, and speak very specifically to my body words of wholeness, forgiveness, life, and love. Can we be healed by the practice of speaking words to our body, to our finances, to our relationships, to our businesses, to our careers? I know that we can. Every cell in your body is intelligent and will respond to the direction that you give it. Every part of your life will create an exact pattern that you give to it. I wrote and spoke many prayers prior to the surgery. I reaffirmed life at my deepest level. Did I have fear? Yes. Did I have anxiousness? Yes. Did I have any guarantees that Myrtle's process would work? No. But I went forward with as much faith. I pushed through the crowd of doubt and fear and anxiety and worry with as much faith as I could. Was it enough? More than enough. On this side of the surgery, I can tell you, I did a whole lot more than I really needed to do. One prayer would have been enough. Now, looking back, one prayer would have been enough. I'm convinced that there is nothing that does not respond to or cannot be completely healed through the power of the spoken word formed within the universal Christ consciousness in you. You touch that place and all healing is possible. The truth is there is that within us which knows us and knows what we have need of before we ask. There is a divine presence that created us and sustains us in perfect wholeness. There is a divine power that eternally awaits our use of it. I am deeply grateful for God's blessing of life, and I am eternally grateful to Myrtle Fillmore that she went into that closet, studied truth, healed herself, and shared her discovery. You too can speak words of life to your body. It can hear you. It will respond. Right now, today, you can be healed. And so let's take a few moments and spend some time in that presence of the healing life of the Christ. I'm going to ask Sharon to just play a little bit of music. If there's anything in your body that needs physical healing or in the body of your affairs, I invite you to just set it aside for a moment. Go into that inner chamber and shut the door. There is only one life, and that life is God. And that life is perfect. And that life is your life now. Your body is a manifestation of the living Spirit. It is created and sustained by the one presence and the one power. Let that power flow in and through you now. Let it enliven and animate every organ, every action, and every function of your physical being. Let its life flow through you, eliminating any fear or doubt or uncertainty about the capacity of this universal Christ consciousness to heal you. I am filled with the life and love of God. I am strong and vibrant. God life surges through my entire body. The power and perfection of the Christ flow through me constantly and keep me in superb health. I rejoice in physical wholeness. Now let that word be in you richly. There is one life, that life is God, that life is perfect, and that life is your life now. And so it is. Together we all say, Amen. Amen. Thank you, and God bless you.